At a small-town diner, a black waitress was publicly fired for using her own tips to buy a warm meal for a hungry old man. Her cold-hearted manager humiliated her in front of everyone, thinking he'd made an example out of her. But what no one expected was that the man he'd just dismissed was a decorated war veteran, and when 4 uniformed soldiers walked in and revealed who he truly was, the entire room was left in stunned silence. The lunch crowd hit Bridgeview Diner like clockwork, right on the hour, just as the rain started again. The diner sat at the edge of Spokane's North Monroe district, wedged between an old pawn shop and a broken-down vape store, where the sidewalks were cracked and the storefronts were tired. The neon "open" sign in the diner's window buzzed weakly, blinking like it was trying to give up but forgot how. Inside, the air smelled of grease, wet coats, and burnt coffee. Vinyl booths creaked. A toddler screamed near the back while his mom scrolled through her phone, ignoring him. A group of construction workers loudly argued over who owed for lunch. The place wasn't fancy, never had been. But it was always full. Familiar faces, same orders, same complaints. Angela Boone moved through it all like muscle memory. She was 32, black, 5'7", lean from long hours and cheap meals, her hair pulled back in a tight bun under a faded maroon visor. Her uniform clung damp to her back from the drizzle she'd walked through just an hour ago. Her sneakers squished when she stepped, but she didn't seem to notice anymore. People didn't look at her much, not unless they were waiting too long or unless she made a mistake. That's when the sighs came louder, the ma'am got sharper, or someone say something like, "I asked for no onions, do you even listen?" Like her ears didn't work because her skin was brown. Angela had heard it all. "Y'all always so slow when we come in. This place used to be nicer before they hired folks like you. Not to be rude, but can I get someone else?" She didn't flinch anymore, just breathed deeper, jaw clenched tighter. She'd grown up knowing silence was often safer than a response. Emily, the 17-year-old hostess, pale and skittish, whispered across the counter, "They're yelling at me again at table 3. Angela didn't miss a beat. "Take the drinks to 4. I'll go talk to them." Emily nodded quickly, relief all over her face. She never questioned Angela. None of the younger staff did. They knew who actually ran the floor. Not Carl. Carl DeWitt, the manager, leaned against the back counter like he'd been born there. Early 40s, thick mustache, thinning blonde hair slicked back like a bad 80s game show host. He wore loafers in the kitchen and had a clipboard he never wrote on. What he did instead was micromanage and make everyone feel replaceable. His words were sugar-coated acid. Calm, slow, and always designed to... Angela had survived 4 years under Carl. Never late, never mouthed off. She knew the rules, written and unspoken. Don't make waves. Don't argue. Don't forget who you are in their eyes. The rain outside picked up and a gust of wind rattled the front door. Angela had just dropped off a club sandwich to a man in a fishing hat when she saw him. A tall, thin figure standing just inside the entrance, soaked through, eyes cloudy, clothes clinging like wet tissue. He didn't speak, just stood there, uncertain, like he'd walked into a memory by mistake. Angela wiped her hands on her apron and walked over, careful not to move too fast. "Sir, are you all right?" His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. I was supposed to meet someone here, I think." She noticed the frayed military patch on his jacket and the dog tags tucked under his collar. His hands shook and one boot was untied. He looked hungry, cold. Forgotten. Angela's chest tightened. She scanned the room. Carl wasn't looking. No one was. Everyone else was too busy waiting for ranch dressing or arguing over sides. She smiled gently. "Let me get you a seat. You hungry?" He nodded once. She sat him in the booth by the window, the one no one liked because of the draft, and without a word, she turned toward the register, pulled a $10 bill from her apron, and slipped it into the till like it was nothing. "Louise," she called softly to the kitchen. "Meatloaf, mashed, green beans, extra gravy." Louise didn't ask questions. He knew Angela's tone. He just nodded. As the plate slid onto the pass window, Angela grabbed it, added a slice of cornbread, and poured a glass of warm water. She walked it over herself, placed it down gently, and said nothing. The man looked up at her like she'd just reminded him he existed. "Thank you," he whispered. "You didn't have to," Angela smiled. "Yeah, I did." Then she turned back toward the kitchen just as Carl looked up and locked eyes with her, and in that moment, before he even spoke, she knew something was about to break. Maybe it was just a rule. Maybe it was everything. The clatter of forks, the hiss of the fryer, the mumble of casual lunchtime chatter, all of it seemed to fade the moment Carl stepped around the counter. His eyes were fixed on Angela, narrow and hard, like she'd just spit in the soup. He didn't walk fast, didn't raise his voice, but something about the way his shoes clicked against the tile made people start to notice. A woman pushing a stroller paused mid-step. 2 high school boys in the corner lowered their fries. Even the old man with headphones took one out. Carl stopped a few feet from the booth where the veteran sat, hands trembling around his fork, halfway through the mashed potatoes. "Angela," Carl said, flat and slow, "what exactly was that?" Angela didn't turn to face him yet. She wiped her hands on her apron, finished stacking a few menus, then looked up with a voice that didn't shake. "He was cold," looked lost. "I bought him a plate." Carl tilted his head like he didn't hear her right. "You use the register?" "I covered it," she replied. 10 out of my tips. I logged it." "That's not the point," he said, still too calm. "You don't get to make that call." Angela folded her arms, her voice low but even. "I made a human call. He needed a meal. Not your job to decide who eats for free," Carl snapped back, just a touch louder. "We're not a damn soup kitchen." By now the front half of the diner had gone quiet. Emily stood frozen at the drink station, holding a straw like she forgot what it was. Louise peeked from the kitchen, eyebrows furrowed but lips sealed. The veteran, confused, looked between Angela and Carl, clearly unsure what he'd done wrong. Angela exhaled through her nose, slow and tight. Her fingers twitched once before she locked them behind her back. She wanted to scream, but that wouldn't help. That would make her look like the stereotype she'd spent her entire career avoiding. Instead, she stayed measured. "It didn't come out of the till. It wasn't free. I paid." Carl stepped closer, his voice louder now, rehearsed indignation wrapped in authority. "Doesn't matter. This isn't your charity project. This is a business. If we hand out plates to every stray who looks hungry, we won't make it through the month." Angela's stomach twisted, not because of his words, she'd heard worse, but because of the way people were watching now. No one spoke. No one moved. They were waiting to see how far he'd go. She glanced back at the booth. The old man, Walter, was trying to stand. His legs shook. He placed one palm on the table to steady himself, but his voice came out strained. "Sir, please. She didn't do anything wrong. I didn't mean to be a problem." Carl didn't even look at him. "Sir, I suggest you sit down and enjoy your meal before this becomes something it doesn't need to be." Angela's throat burned. Her fists clenched, then released. "You've made your point," she said. "Take it out of my check. Write me up. But don't humiliate him like this." Carl's voice sliced through the silence like ice. "No. I'm going to make this very clear. Everyone listen up." He turned to the room with a smile that wasn't a smile. "This employee right here just gave away a meal on our dime. So, if you're hungry and broke, apparently that's all it takes now, just ask Angela. She'll pick up the tab." A couple of customers gave awkward laughs. Most just stared. One woman looked away, cheeks pink with second-hand embarrassment. Angela's heart pounded in her chest, not with shame, but rage. Deep, old rage. Rage she'd buried under years of yes sirs and soft apologies. She stared at Carl, jaw tight, voice low. "That man served this country. You treat him like trash." Carl's fake smile dropped. "You're done, Angela. Take off the apron. You don't work here anymore." Time didn't stop, but it felt like it staggered. Angela blinked once, then slowly untied her apron. Her hands didn't shake. She folded it with care, the way she always had at the end of a shift, and laid it gently on the counter. She didn't look at Carl again. Louise stood half in, half out of the kitchen. His lips parted like he might say something, but didn't. Emily looked down at her shoes, her fingers twisted around the hem of her shirt. Nobody said a word. The old man, Walter, stood now, holding the edge of the booth with both hands. She helped me. I didn't ask. I just came in." He trailed off, lost in thought, then reached slowly into the inside pocket of his coat. His fingers fumbled before pulling out something small and silver. An old, bent purple heart pin. He laid it on the edge of the table, gently. "I was with the 1st Marines, Kaysan. Most of my friends didn't come home. I ain't looking for pity, just respect." Carl didn't answer. Didn't even blink. Angela stepped forward and touched the old man's shoulder. Her voice cracked just slightly. "It's okay, sir. Really. You don't owe me anything." But the old man didn't seem to hear her. He stared at the pin on the table. "They always said someone see, someone remember." Angela nodded once, then turned and walked to the door. The rain outside had softened, more mist than drizzle now. Her hoodie soaked up the damp as she stepped onto the sidewalk, head high, hands still closed tight around her folded apron. She didn't look back. Inside, Carl moved like he'd won something. He straightened the receipt printer, wiped his palms on a rag, and muttered something under his breath about damn bleeding hearts. But he felt it. Something was off. The room didn't bounce back. No jokes, no chatter, no clinks of coffee mugs. Emily turned toward the window, eyes glassy. Louise had disappeared into the back. At the window booth, the Purple Heart gleamed faintly under the overhead lights, sitting untouched on a napkin beside a half-eaten plate of meatloaf and mashed potatoes, and though no one said it aloud, they all felt it. The weight of something decent being thrown out, and the sour taste it left behind. The booth by the window sat quietly, its only occupant now leaning back, hands resting on his thighs, eyes fixed on nothing and everything all at once. The meatloaf had gone cold, and the gravy had begun to congeal around the edges of the plate, but Walter Green didn't seem to notice. His coat had slipped halfway open, revealing a fraying patch stitched inside that most people in the room wouldn't recognize, but the ones who did so instantly. A few stared, whispers beginning to flicker like sparks that hadn't yet found kindling. Carl hadn't spoken in several minutes, which was rare. He paced behind the counter, fiddling with stacks of sugar packets, repositioning the receipt printer, tapping the register drawer like it might open and reveal a way out. His fingers drummed against the stainless steel with nervous precision. He kept glancing toward the door, toward the booth, then back toward the kitchen where Louise hadn't returned. The air in the diner felt heavier, like the vents had stopped working, like the silence was something thick and growing. Walter finally moved. He adjusted in his seat, reached for the glass of water Angela had placed in front of him, and took a slow sip. The clinking of ice against the rim echoed more than it should have. Emily had resumed restocking napkins, her face still pale, eyes flicking nervously toward Carl any time he moved. The bell above the diner door gave a soft jingle, then again, not rushed, not timid, 4 steps, heavy, deliberate, boots on tile, and then the room changed. They didn't speak as they entered, 4 men, all in uniform, though none were in dress blues. These were field-worn, regulation attire softened by years of use. One wore desert tan, another forest camo. Their boots were scuffed but laced tight. Their jackets bore patches, some faded, some current. The tallest one had 3 chevrons and a rocker stitched clean above his left breast pocket. The name tag read, "Coal." They didn't look around like customers. They scanned. Calm, purposeful, each man assessed the space in the quiet way soldiers do when stepping into a place that could turn. No one needed to ask who they were. The way they moved told everyone enough. Walter looked up. He blinked twice, then reached for the table's edge like he wasn't sure he should stand. Cole stepped forward and spoke first. His voice was steady, like gravel layered over velvet. "Sir," he said with a respectful nod, "we got your message." Walter straightened. His lips moved without sound at first, then finally settled into words. I didn't mean for this. I wasn't trying to cause trouble." Cole nodded once. "We know, sir. We came to make sure what happened here doesn't stay quiet." Carl finally stepped out from behind the counter, plastering on a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Afternoon, gentlemen. Can I help you? If you're looking to be seated, I can get someone." The second Marine, stockier with dark skin and a scar across his temple, cut in without raising his voice. "We're not here to eat." Cole turned toward Carl. "You the manager?" Carl paused a beat too long. "I am. Carl DeWitt. I understand something might have been misunderstood earlier. I assure you we treat all customers with respect here." The Marine with the scar, who hadn't broken eye contact once, said evenly, "You fired a woman for paying for a vet's meal? That what you call respect?" Carl's expression faltered for half a breath before he smoothed it over. "Look, this is a business. We have policies, no handouts. It wasn't personal." "It became personal the moment you humiliated her," Cole replied. One of the customers at the counter, a middle-aged man in a fishing vest, turned slightly in his stool. "She's been working here for years," he said, not looking at Carl. "Remembers how I take my coffee, always polite. That woman's the reason most of us come here." The old man at booth 2 nodded silently. Emily, who had been gripping the straw dispenser so hard her knuckles were white, finally stepped away from the drink station. Her voice shook but didn't break. "She helped me close when I was new, walks me to my car every night. I wouldn't still be working here if it weren't for her." Carl shifted, visibly annoyed now, jaw tightening. "I'm not going to be ganged up on in my own diner." "No one's ganging up," Cole said. "We're speaking up. Big difference." From the kitchen, Luis finally reappeared. He didn't say anything at first, just wiped his hands on his apron, looking at Walter, then at Cole. "This ain't right," he said quietly. "Ain't been right for a while." Carl barked. "You want to walk out too, Luis?" Luis shrugged. "I'm saying what I should have said 20 minutes ago." Walter reached for his coat pocket again, pulling the Purple Heart back into his hand. He didn't pin it on, just held it, thumb moving over the dented edge. His eyes shimmered. "I just wanted a warm plate," he murmured. "Didn't mean to start a war." "You didn't," Cole said gently. "You reminded us that silence lets this kind of thing keep happening." Carl glanced around now, and for the first time it hit him. No one was on his side. Not Louise, not Emily, not the customers, not the 4 Marines who'd taken command of the space without raising their voices or lifting a finger. And certainly not the man still holding a medal most people only ever saw in museums. Outside, just beyond the diner's fogged-up windows, the sidewalk began to fill with people. Some stood in pairs, some alone. No signs, no chants, just onlookers, curious, watching. Inside, the silence swelled again, but this time it wasn't heavy with shame. It was the weight of something shifting. And just then the bell above the door rang once more. It wasn't loud, but everyone turned. The next morning came without thunder, without headlines or spotlights, but to Angela Boone it felt like a beginning. Not a grand one, but a clean one. The bus ride across town was the same route she'd taken for years, but this time the stops felt lighter, the air different, as if her shoulders weren't dragging the same invisible weight anymore. She stepped off 2 blocks from the Franklin Veterans Outreach Center, her folded hoodie tucked under one arm, the same one she'd worn in the rain. The building wasn't much to look at, single story, brick, with a flag that hung low in the soft wind and a sign that looked like it hadn't been repainted in 10 years. But inside it smelled like cinnamon rolls and fresh paper, and the walls carried a kind of warmth no paint could create. Jordan Malik, the center's operations director, met her at the front with a calm smile, khakis pressed, sleeves rolled, and an energy that didn't try to impress. "Ms. Boone," he greeted, offering a hand. "We're glad you're here." Angela shook it. firm and steady. She didn't know what this new job would become, only that it had already started from a better place than most. The work was simple, nothing flashy. She answered calls, handed out forms, helped visitors navigate housing support applications, organized meal drop-offs, and pointed people to places that could help more than she could. But it wasn't the task list that made her breathe easier. It was the rhythm, the lack of suspicion, the fact that no one second-guessed her reasons for being kind. By noon, she was wiping her hands on a paper towel after helping a vet's wife sort out transportation paperwork when she heard a familiar voice from the lobby. She made it. Walter Green sat near the front window, same old coat draped over his shoulders, holding a paper cup of coffee like it might tip over if he didn't focus. His smile was small, but sure. Angela walked over, crouched beside him. "Told you I would," she said, watching him nod slowly. "They've got you working already?" he asked, mock concern in his tone. "Didn't even give you the day off for saving my dignity." She chuckled, low and genuine. "I like it here," she said. "Feels right." Walter's eyes wandered toward the entrance. "Place like this doesn't run on paperwork," he said. "Runs on people who show up." She sat next to him for a few moments, letting the quiet stretch. Outside, traffic hummed in the distance, the sky a soft gray that threatened more drizzle but never delivered. She thought back to the diner, the long shifts, the weight of being watched and judged, of walking on eggshells in shoes that were never dry. That world had shrunk to the size of a single folded apron, now resting in her bedroom drawer, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Later that afternoon, while Angela filed intake forms at her desk, the door opened and a woman entered with cautious steps and a leather handbag clutched tightly in both hands. She looked out of place, not because of what she wore, but because of how she wore it, like she was walking into a space she didn't feel she had the right to occupy. "I'm looking for Angela Boone," she said softly to the front desk volunteer. Angela stood. "That's me." The woman stepped forward. "I'm Eileen March," she said. "I was Carl's business partner, the silent one, mostly on paper. I funded the diner years ago, but I didn't run it." Angela raised an eyebrow. "You didn't seem very silent in that profit memo he kept waving around." Eileen winced. "I saw the video last night, all of it, the way he talked to you, the way he spoke about that man. It made me sick. I can't claim I didn't know he was harsh, but I never thought—" She trailed off, cleared her throat. "I've started the process to dissolve my stake. The cafe's being appraised. I'm not going back there." Angela didn't respond right away. She'd expected anger, maybe denial. What she heard instead was, "Shame." Eileen reached into her bag and handed her an envelope. "This is from my own account. No strings. No guilt money. Just, you shouldn't have paid for decency with your job." Angela took the envelope slowly, nodded, and set it down on her desk. "I didn't do it to get anything back." "I know," Eileen said. "That's why you deserve it." When she left, Angela waited a long time before touching the envelope again. For now, it could sit there. She still had work to do. As the day wound down and the last intake form was filed, Angela walked to the front windows of the center. The sun was lowering behind the building, casting a warm glow against the parking lot. Walter still sat in his favorite chair, a blanket folded neatly over his knees. He looked out the window like someone waiting for something that might never come, or already had and just hadn't finished saying goodbye. "You need anything before I lock up?" she asked. He shook his head gently. "Just thinking about old things," he said. "When I was in country, we didn't make it if we didn't trust each other. Didn't matter what color you were, where you were from, only mattered if you had someone's back." Angela leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Sometimes I used to wonder if I ever mattered," she admitted. "I'd work hard, stay quiet, do my part, and still feel like I was one mistake away from disappearing." Walter turned to her, steady eyes meeting hers. "People like you? You hold things up, quietly, without applause. That manager, he thought power was being in charge. But real power is what people say about you when you're not in the room." She swallowed hard, something tightening in her chest. "Did you really call those Marines?" Walter gave a soft chuckle. Didn't have to. One of them checks in on me every Sunday. I just told him what happened. Told him a good woman lost her job for doing the right thing. And that was enough? She asked. He nodded slowly. When you're good to one of us, you're good to all of us. Angela didn't say anything. She didn't have to. That night, back at her apartment, she sat on the edge of her bed and finally opened the envelope from Eileen. Inside was a note, handwritten in neat cursive, and a cashier's check made out for $5,000. The note read, "Thank you for reminding the rest of us what integrity looks like. I hope this helps you build something better. Eileen." Angela held it for a long time. Not for the money, but for the fact that for once doing the right thing hadn't led to silence or punishment. It had led here, to this moment, to this peace. She reached for her phone, not to scroll, not to text, but to re-watch the video Emily had sent her the day before. She didn't do it to hear herself speak. She did it to read the comments beneath. She's the reason I believe in people again. There's hope, and her name is Angela Boone. What if we were all just a little more like her? She smiled. Not wide, not showy, just enough. Because for once, she didn't feel invisible. She felt real, solid, and finally, she felt like she belonged. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.